Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of All in All with Alex. I'm your host, of course, Alex, and today we have a very special guest, Miss Linda.
Hello, Alex. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
No problem at all. How you doing today?
I'm doing excellent. It's summer here in New Hampshire, so what can be better?
Right. We love that summertime now. We love the summertime. It's summer down here too, but it's very
Oh,
humid in Alabama.
all right.
So,
All right.
but anyway, can you give a quick background about yourself, and then we'll jump into the questions?
Sure. So thanks again for having me. I'm the author of a book that recently came out. It's called Live Free and Hike Finding Grace on 48 Summits. And it's about my adventures tackling the or hiking the 4,000 foot and higher summits in New Hampshire,
Mhm.
all 48 of them at the ripe young age of 55. So the live free and hike is kind of a takeoff of our state motto, which is live free or die. But thankfully, I didn't die on any of these summits. Some people do, which makes it a little risky. But I got through it and wrote a book about it. So here I am.
Okay. Pretty interesting. Definitely glad you didn't die and you were here with us today to tell your side of the story.
Mhm.
Um, so we're just going to jump right in it. Where did it go? Okay, there it is. Sorry about that. So okay, so you mentioned reconnecting with this passion after ending a difficult marriage. How did immersing yourself in nature help you navigate that challenging transition?
Yeah, so I'd always loved the outdoors growing up, and I have an outdoor career here for in the state of New Hampshire. But I left all of that behind and gave all of that up because I was uh, in a fairly toxic marriage to a controlling husband, and so there wasn't any much hiking or any time for any me time to pursue my own hobbies or pursuits because I was constantly walking on eggshells, trying not to trying to keep the peace within the family. This went on for way too long than I stayed in this marriage way too long than I should have. I didn't tell a soul about it. I just kept it to myself. Didn't tell anyone. And then finally, in my mid 50s, I decided that I had had enough. And so one night, after once again, being the recipient of my ex-husband's violent temper, I decided that enough was enough, and I told him I was filing a divorce and left, moved out a few weeks later. So some of your listeners may be thinking, well, why did you stay in this marriage, and why didn't you leave sooner, right? That's always the age old question. Why didn't you just leave? And it's not as simple as that.
Mhm.
I was raised to, I had made my marriage vows, and my grandmother would say, you made your bed, now lie in it. And it
Right.
was that, and I think like I said, I hadn't told anybody. It filing for divorce or leaving would in my eyes meant I was a failure. Would people understand? With
Mhm.
what would they take sides? Could I afford to live on my own? There's such a range of complex emotions that go with that. But finally, I decided that life was getting too short to not enjoy.
Mhm.
So I moved out, and quite by accident, I went on a hike one day. I had the freedom to do what I wanted now, right? And one day I went up, I hiked one of these 4,000 foot summits, Mount Musalak, and I just absolutely loved it. I loved being outside. It made me feel good. It was good to get some exercise and some fresh air.
Mhm.
As your listeners probably know, being outside and exercising is so important for mental health and
Mhm.
for recovery from trauma. So I went on this hike, and it was 8 miles, and I just felt so good about myself and what I had done. And then I was reading the guidebook about the New Hampshire White Mountains and discovered that there's this, it's a thing, much like hiking the Appalachian Trail or the Pacific Crest Trail. Hiking these 48 4,000 footers is a thing. And if you hike all of them, you're amply rewarded with a teeny tiny patch and a little 8.5 by 11 certificate, and you're inducted into the 4,000 footers club. And I thought, man, that's so cool. I want to do that. And so I began this journey of hiking all of these 4,000 footers, not really knowing what I was doing. So I was kind of wearing the wrong clothes and going about it the wrong way. And through the book, you kind of learn along with me what's the proper way and what's the proper equipment to bring on some of these hikes. Because even though it's only 4,000 feet, there is risk involved in that. A couple of things make it risky. One is it's the elevation gain in such a short period of time. Mm-hmm. But the second thing is that much of these summits are exposed. So they're above tree line, and the weather here in New Hampshire can turn nasty in an instant. Now, the higher summits like Mount Washington have recorded snow all 12 months of the year. And so if you're caught unprepared, things can deteriorate rapidly, and it takes hours for rescue to mobilize and come find you if they find you. So there's a certain amount of risk involved, but with each summit, I learned something a little bit new. I began to do some research. I took an outdoor survival class for women, and gradually I began to get better at summiting all these peaks.
Okay. Yeah. That's pretty interesting. So as an environmentalist, how does your appreciation for nature intersect with your advocacy efforts?
Yeah, so I still work for the state of New Hampshire for our environmental agency. And so, with that background, I was able to, bring some of my knowledge to the outdoors with me, right? So I had a little bit of background with that. And so, with each summit, I began to get more confident in what I was doing. But again, I had a hard time sharing my goals with people. And so I never told anybody about it until I enrolled in a course taught by a life coach. So what is a life coach? Well, a life coach is somebody that helps you find your path forward, right? So unlike a therapist who likes to look at your past and, mess with your feelings, a life coach helps you move forward. And so I enrolled in this class with a life coach by the name of Emily Clement. And during this class, I learned for the first time that it was okay to want something, right? So throughout my marriage, if I wanted something, that had consequences. It meant I was selfish, I was greedy, I was only thinking about myself and not him. And so the idea of expressing a want was almost mind-blowing. Mm-hmm. And I learned that thoughts become things. And I thought, you know what? Why don't I share this with the class? So I shared with the class that I wanted to hike all of these mountains and write a book about it. And so that was the first time that I had breathed life into this goal that I had. And there's something magical, Alex, about writing down your goals or sharing them. It's almost as if the universe now knows what you want and will pave the way for you to get that. Mm-hmm. So, during this class, I learned that, thoughts become things, action is rewarded, just some of these small things that again, for somebody who had never expressed, if I wanted something, like I said, it had consequences. I really had to say, gee, I want to go out with my girlfriends. And then sometimes the consequences would be 2 or 3 days of getting the silent treatment. It's like, I mean, that's just not normal. And so for me to kind of, for the first time, hear somebody say that it was okay to want, that it was okay to have goals, the universe has your back, action is rewarded. I mean, those were all things that were just, like I said, just a revelation. No one had ever told me that before. So with this class, this class was in the wintertime. It was in January. And I thought, gee, I just shut off my mouth about hiking these 4,000 footers. I better go and do some. So in the middle of winter and all that deep snow and cold, I did some, and you know what? It was fine. I got back down and I would do 1 or 2 a month, and gradually completely finished off the list.
Okay. That's pretty interesting. I mean, we all have goals and things that we have in mind, and to actually see you go out and achieve those goals and do the things that you want to do is definitely a great thing for sure. So do you can you discuss mental health and physical health benefits you've experienced from spending time in the outdoors?
Sure. So I think any form of exercise is great for your mental health, right?
Yes.
It's all about, sometimes I think it's just all about getting a good night's sleep. Man, if you can get a good night's sleep, you can wake up and feel energized. And part of that is getting exercise. And you don't have to go to a gym or climb a 4,000 footer. Just go out to your mailbox, just go for a walk. And the more you exercise, a couple of things happen. One is you get more physically fit, but you get that little dopamine, that little high that you get, and then you sleep better at night. So today I ran 4 miles. I'm thinking I'm going to sleep pretty good tonight. But all of those things, I think they're so related, like getting proper nutrition, getting exercise, taking care of yourself, getting a good night's sleep. It's hard to do if you're in a really bad place, and it seems overwhelming to do all of those things. But what I did when I was going through some of my trauma is that I would just take it things like 1 hour at a time. I would just get out of bed and say, you know what, all I'm going to do today is just focus on getting dressed. And once I did that, I think, okay, I've got my gym clothes on. I'm just going to go out the door, and I do that, and just break it down into these really tiny, tiny micro steps and these tiny, tiny micro habits, and just try to build on it. Some days it's going to be raining, or it's going to be 20 below zero, or life is going to get in the way, and then give yourself some space and just keep trying again. So that's, for me, I think it's so important, to walk in nature, meditate, all of those things. It's just, for me, it's been really super helpful.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good. I mean,
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Yeah.
So that's always good. I mean, that's why I'm so big on mental health, is because it's to me the most important thing in the world, and your mental health can affect your physical health. So if you have good mental health and you are always in good spirits, then more than likely your physical health is going to follow. And then the same as far as if you have bad mental health, your physical health is probably going to go down as well. So
there's definitely a connection. I get letters and emails from people after reading my book and sharing their experiences, and you're absolutely right. The two are connected, and it can be very hard to get out of that, or to try to make improvements. But I think the key again is just small incremental but consistent steps, like it's building a habit. And I think exercise, being outdoors, eating right, eating good food, nothing that you have to unwrap or something, is helpful too. All of those things. Yeah.
So do you have a particular a particularly memorable or impactful moment from your hiking trip that you can share?
Oh, sure. I have quite a few. I don't want to give them all away, but a lot of these hikes I would do alone, solo. And there's people out there that think that's a dangerous thing to do. It's not being safe. And there's others that hike solo all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I was probably, or at least I had like 30 peaks behind me, and I was hiking solo in the winter fairly regularly, but that has its own set of risks now because daylight is in shorter supply, and I like to be down before it gets dark. Uh, the consequences of making mistakes are more severe, right? Uh, it's colder, it's windier, it's less crowded if you should get into trouble. So there's a certain heightened risk involved in uh, hiking up mountains. And one day I decided to solo hike up this particularly high mountain. It's in the Presidential Range, and it's named Mount Madison, and it's about 5,000 feet, and a lot of it is above tree line. Well, when I got to the point where I was above the trees, there was nothing but fog. You couldn't see anything, and it was extremely windy. I'm thinking it was like 40 to 50 miles an hour, and ice and rime ice is starting to form on my goggles, on my clothes, and I'm looking a little bit like a snow cone. And as I'm going up, I'm meeting one person coming back down, and the wind is howling so much that we have to shout just to hear one another. And so it was another woman, and I asked her if there was anybody else on the mountain, and she said, "No, you're it." I said, "Okay, do you think I can do this?" And she said, "Yes, you should be fine." And so she went down, and I started up. The only problem is that I had worn the wrong pair of boots. I had worn the wrong pair of pants, and these wind pants that I were wearing, I could not keep up above my waist. I was constantly struggling to keep them, and the wind was struggling to pull them down around my ankles. It was difficult to see. I couldn't see from one. The trail is marked by a pile of rocks called a cairn, and I couldn't see from one to the next unless the clouds cleared for a moment, and then I would scamper from one to the other.
Oh, wow.
New Hampshire is called the Granite State for a good reason, because all the trails above tree line are essentially big rocks, and that's about it. So you're just trying to get from one big rock to another. They're covered in snow, they're covered in ice, and all of a sudden this stopped becoming fun, Alex. The fun factor was just completely sucked out of this. And as I was standing there, hiking up my pants yet for the 50th time, the wind took me and it just sat me right down onto a big rock. And I sat for a moment, and I took that as a sign that it was time to turn around. And it was the first time in since taking up this endeavor that I had turned around and saved the summit for another day. There's no, they say the mountain will always be there. And as soon as I turned around and started back down, I felt this huge relief that, you know what, there's no shame in that. No one's, it'll be fine. I ended up redoing the hike in July, and it took half the time. It was a beautiful day. I could see for miles. And what I learned from that is I really enjoy hiking for the views. There's something magical being above tree line and seeing for thousands or hundreds of miles into like New York or Maine or Massachusetts, and just seeing the mountains. It makes you feel, it's very humbling, makes you feel really small, but it's its own reward. So that hike will always stay with me because, some people are just so driven that they're going to, find that summit no matter what. And sometimes that can have fatal consequences. Many times it does. And you have to know when to turn around. I mean, that's just, everybody, I think that's a critical decision that if you don't turn around, you'll die. You could die.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I understand.
Yeah.
So, is there any advice that you would give someone who's interested in exploring the outdoors, but maybe feels, intimidated, or maybe they're unsure on where to start?
Yeah, sure. So, you might want to just start small and start local and start where you are, right? Just head out into your local park. There's a lot of good websites and a lot of good advice out there. There's a website from the American Hiking Society. There's another website called hikesafe.com, and it gives you the 10 essentials, some of the essential equipment that you need to get started. There's a Facebook group for everything. There's plenty of them for the 4,000 footers, and there's all sorts of lists here of mountains that people hike. So there's plenty of resources out there that you can use, that you can certainly tap into. And also, my book gives a lot of tips too.
Okay.
So, I don't like to make the same mistake twice. I like to make it, 8 or 9 times before I learn. So learn from my mistakes, buy my book, and you can read all the dumb things I did, and I'll learn from that as well.
Okay. Yeah, definitely. So, are there any maybe like some common misconceptions or barriers that prevent people from fully embracing the benefits of spending time in nature?
Yeah, I think fear is one, fear of bears or animals, fear of snakes, fear of getting lost, which is a legit fear. If I think like our trails are well marked, but it's, in one of the chapters of my book, I get lost, and I use this survival acronym to get myself unlost and get myself found again. So I think as far as barriers go, I think it's fear. Uh, that's a tough one to overcome, but start small, start where you are, start with what you have, and just get out there. It's helpful. There's meetup groups. If you're a little nervous about going at it, inexperienced, there's meetup groups for everything now. There's Facebook groups. There's if you don't want to go alone, there's no need to. There's you'll have plenty of company here, especially here in New Hampshire on the trail.
Yeah. Right. So, is there any maybe big trails or hills or mountains that you plan on climbing anytime soon?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Thanks. Thanks for asking. I am. There's another list called the 52 with a view, and what that list is, it's these are lower summits that have a great little effort but big view ratio. So a lot of them are not as high as the 48 4,000 footers. They're very kid friendly, very pet friendly, and so I'm tackling that list. And also I'm writing, there've been some like plane crashes from many years ago here in the White Mountains. And so I'm researching those and writing about those a little bit, and some of the stories of the survivors from some of these crashes. So that's my next project. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be pretty cool. I mean, it'd be good to hear, some of those stories of, how the crashes happen, how they survive, because crashing there, I'm pretty sure you had to survive for a while, but until you have help come and find you, and
right,
yeah. So I can only imagine how those stories would be. So definitely, anybody watching needs to stay tuned for your next book, because that's going to be the one to really check out. Of course, they need to check out the first one as well, but to check out that one is going to be some more exciting stories as well. So
all right, thank you.
So let's see, what do you feel has been the most rewarding aspect of your work as an outdoor writer and advocate of the benefits of nature?
Yeah, I think the most rewarding part of the work is hearing from folks who've read the book and have shared their stories with me, especially
Mhm.
survivors of domestic violence or domestic abuse or some other related trauma. I think sharing your story empowers others to do the same. And for folks to reach out and write and share their story with me, I feel very privileged to uh, to learn more about them and their uh, what they've gone through and how brave and courageous they are. So that's been very rewarding.
That's it. That's good. Okay. So do you? So let's see. So how do you approach discussing sensitive or personal topics related to mental health and personal growth in your writing?
Yeah, so I think it's helpful to be honest with people. I
Mhm.
mean, it's you know uh, like halfway through my story, when I set out to write this book, it was going to be about this fumbling, bumbling, middle-aged woman with no experience, just pinging off from one summit to another like a errant pinball machine, and that was my intent. But the story takes a very dark turn. Not even when I'm a third of the way through, and that I wake up one day to find out that my ex-husband has been arrested for some very serious crimes, and that starts me off on a totally different path. And now hiking and mental health and healing has taken on a whole new meaning, because now he's making the front page of the paper, and would be for the next 3 years. It took 3 years for that process to play itself out. And through that, I had to relearn everything, you know, like I said, being outdoors and hiking and I stuck with it, despite that was probably the worst and traumatic time of my life, but I kept at it. And it was so important to have a goal, because
Mhm.
it's what got me out of bed in the morning. And it was when the world was crashing around me, when sometimes I couldn't even get out of bed. And this was something that was important to me and just kind of gave me a purpose, right?
Mhm.
So, whether you're, no matter your age, it's important to have some sort of purpose. And that was, for me, that was my purpose, was to keep hiking. Journaling helped. I re-engaged with my life coach. I had a therapist, and I was engaged with her. So if you surround yourself with all of this support, then that's how I managed to get through this very difficult time.
Mm. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, so how do you hope that your work will contribute to the broader conversation and understanding of the intersection between nature, mental health, and personal empowerment?
Yeah. So the like I said, very, very open and honest in the book about some of these hikes. There's the book is some of the chapters, if you're into hiking and some of the trails, there's that. But in between these hikes, I'm discussing how I'm coping with my ex-husband's notoriety, because all of a sudden, like I said, he was in the news about every other week as his criminal activities became more widely known. It affected me quite a bit. So I think, in just sharing that, and I still like to exercise, I still like to hike. Uh, you know, uh, Spoiler alert, he'll never get out of prison, and I'll never see him again. But it's in a, there's always that scar, right? And so, in order to manage that, I always have to uh, take time for self-care.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would definitely agree. I mean,
Yeah.
self-care is the best care. You know.
Right.
So,
And for me, that somebody may think yoga is their go-to. I mean, whatever works for you, right? And just try different things, whether it's yoga or whether it's knitting or meditation, but for me, I'm a very active person. So for me, getting out and walking and running or hiking or something like that, just to kind of uh, dissipate some energy so I can sleep better at night and wake up refreshed in the morning. So it's all part of a connected cycle, I think.
yeah, I would definitely
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah.
So, is there anything else that you would like to share with the audience before we wrap things up?
No, again, my book is called Live Free and Hike, Finding Grace on 48 Summits. It's available on Amazon or Barnes & Noble or all good books are sold. And I look forward to hearing from you. And it was a pleasure meeting you, Alex.
Oh yeah, same here. So everyone tuning in, you guys, please, go and purchase the book, and find her on social media, reach out to her, let her know you guys' thoughts on the book and what you guys learned from it. So
Yeah, all right.
yeah, definitely. So everybody, thank you for watching. You guys have just watched another episode of All in All with Alex, and we'll see you guys on the next episode. Later.